Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my versus video between the Nike Zoom Freak 4 and the Nike Zoom Freak 5. So they're pretty much the same exact price. Both of these colorways are 130 bucks on Nike, but I saw some colorways of the Zoom Freak 4 available for like 80-90 bucks. But also the Zoom Freak 5, there was another colorway going for 140 bucks, which is kind of weird. I don't know why they're changing up the price for different colors, but if you guys do want to cop either of these shoes, I try to leave the free link in the description box. But let's get it started right off with the Tracciones, and the Zoom Freak 5 is definitely better, right? The Zoom Freak 4 is actually pretty good, but for me, in my personal experience, the traction wasn't amazingly good. It wasn't top tier, you know what I mean? But the Zoom Freak 5 was top tier for me. It has a really nice bite. Also, another thing is that the Zoom Freak 4 for me didn't really squeak all too much. You know, the Zoom Freak 5 has a very nice, loud, high-pitched squeak. Of course, that has nothing to do with performance, but I like to have a little bit of squeakiness, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of you guys would agree as well. But yeah, the stop is just better here in the Zoom Freak 5. When you're playing on a clean court, better stop. The Zoom Freak 4 is still pretty damn nice. It's just not as good as the 5. And also, if you're playing on a dusty court, I would actually say the Zoom Freak 5 picks up a little bit more dust. I would say the 4 is a little bit more consistent, just because it wasn't like a crazy good bite on a clean surface, and on a dusty setting, it's like the same, maybe a little bit worse. You know what I mean? So it doesn't go down by much from going to clean to dust for the Zoom Freak 4, right? The Zoom Freak 5, it still bites and performs well, or pretty well, on dust. It's just, if you let a little too much dust build up, it does start to slide around a little bit. So obviously it goes from top tier to a little bit more worse than the Zoom Freak 4. But if you keep up with your wipes on the Zoom Freak 5, then you're gonna be good to go. You're gonna have a great time, right? And also, as far as the durability goes, I feel like the Zoom Freak 5 will be a little bit better, just because there's more surface area, there's more rubber. And like, as you guys can see, the Zoom Freak 4 is a little bit more spread out, right? And I guess the rubber feels a little bit softer as well. So I feel like the Zoom Freak 5 will be a little bit better on an outdoor court. Of course, take that with a grain of salt. I didn't actually play with these on an outdoor court. It's just me feeling the actual rubber, right? So yeah, the Zoom Freak 5 has better performance for the traction. And now moving on to the heel to toe transition, they're both very smooth. So here in the heel, we have a nice rounded shape. Same thing here in the 4, and also fully exposed midsole, which is super duper soft. The foam is very soft in the heel for both of the shoes. And then in the 4 foot, we have a nice curved shape, and same thing with the 5, and a lot of 4 foot flex here in the 5. The 4, not as much. And also look at the freaking midfoot. Look at how much it flexes, right? So torsional support is way better here in the 5. It doesn't really bend at all, probably due to the midfoot chain plate, right? There's a midfoot chain plate here in the 5. So yeah, 5 has better torsional support, but as far as the overall heel to toe transition goes, they're both pretty damn smooth. The 5 feels a little bit smoother because there's a little bit more flex in the 4 foot. Because, you know, we have these 4 foot zoom units, it doesn't really flex as much here in the 4 foot, right? Now moving on to the cushioning setup. So the cushioning setup is very similar, besides the 4 foot zoom units, right? So here in the heel, the Zoom Freak 5 is super duper soft. You know, you have a nice soft foam, and same thing with the Zoom Freak 4. You have a nice compression, and I would actually say the Zoom Freak 4 might even have a little bit more compression, just a tiny bit more. It's a little bit softer, it feels like, but they both have very soft foams in the heel, right? And as far as the court feel goes, they both feel very similar as well. I would say the Zoom Freak 5, it feels a little bit lower to the ground in the 4 foot, but in the heel it's pretty much the same, right? But here in the Zoom Freak 5, we have a top-loaded zoom unit, so you can feel like a nice compression and also a nice little bounce right underneath your foot, which feels better in my personal opinion than the bottom-loaded zoom units here in the 4 foot for the Zoom Freak 4. Like, look at that. You can't really feel the extra bounce from these zoom units because it's not right underneath your foot, right? So when you're like kind of running and playing, you can feel a little bit of propulsion, just a tiny bit. But honestly, I would rather feel zoom right underneath my foot, right? So as far as like the overall impact protection and all that, it's all pretty similar. Pretty much the only difference is, like I said, the Zoom Freak 4 feels a little bit softer here in the heel, but it's pretty negligible. And then the zoom units in the 4 foot, right? So in my personal opinion, like I said, I would choose the Zoom Freak 5 because I like that. And I feel like most people would probably agree with me. So there is the cushioning setup there. I feel like the Zoom Freak 5 is a little bit better, right? Now moving on to the materials. So here in the Zoom Freak 4, we have like a mesh material. Look at how soft and thin this material. Look at that. You know what I mean? In the Zoom Freak 5, we have the synthetic leather material. It's still soft, but it just feels a little bit more supportive. You know what I mean? So it definitely feels more supportive here in the toe box for the Zoom Freak 5. But also the Zoom Freak 4 does feel more minimal, you know what I mean? And then here in the midfoot, it's super duper thin here in the Zoom Freak 4. This is the 5, it's still super duper thin, but it feels a little bit more rigid, a little bit more supportive, you know what I mean? And then for the eyelets, we have these kind of like extra straps that go down into the midsole, giving you better support and also lockdown. And it also kind of tightens on your foot when you tighten down the laces, which feels nice. The Zoom Freak 4, it doesn't really have anything like that, you know what I mean? And then for the tongue, we have pretty much the same amount of padding, right? They're both pretty well padded, not as well padded as the Zoom Freak 1 and 2, but there's still a nice bit of padding. They're both half booty construction tongues as well, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit. And then here in the ankle area, I would say it's actually quite similar. Maybe the Zoom Freak, actually the Zoom Freak 5 has a little bit more padding, especially in the back of the heel, but it's pretty similar as far as the padding goes, right? So, I mean, it all depends on what you want. I would actually say the Zoom Freak 5 feels a little bit more durable as well, especially with this leather material. The Zoom Freak 4 is just a super duper thin like mesh, you know what I mean? So the Zoom Freak 5 feels like it'll last a little bit longer for the material, and also it feels a little bit more supportive, but it still conforms to your foot extremely well. It's a little bit cozier, and I would even say it's a little bit more comfortable, you know what I mean? But if you want like super minimal and also very, very thin material, then obviously the Zoom Freak 4 is gonna be the better option. But for me, it's not like the Zoom Freak 5 was like bulky or cumbersome or uncomfortable or anything. It does all of that pretty well while still also feeling pretty minimal, you know what I mean? So I would say I like the Zoom Freak 5 material and upper better. Although this synthetic leather isn't the best for quality, overall how it feels and how it performs, I feel like the 5 is better, right? So there's that. Moving on to the fit. So they both fit me pretty much the exact same, but the Zoom Freak 5 does run short. So I went up half a size and I went true to size for the Zoom Freak 4, and they both fit me pretty much the exact same, right? So here in the toe box, they're both a snug fit. They're both also pretty narrow, and for the length, they're both pretty much the same when I went up half a size for the Zoom Freak 5 and true to size for the Zoom Freak 4, right? So yeah, it's a very, very similar fit, and I like the fit in both of the shoes for my foot. And now moving on to the support and lockdown, the Zoom Freak 4 had 0 issues, right? Lateral containment, I was good to go. I guess the foam comes up acting as a sidewall just a little bit here in the forefoot. We have this swoosh coming up here in the midfoot, and we have an internal TPU heel counter, right? But the overall material is a little bit softer, right? So you can feel the movement of the material a little bit more as opposed to the Zoom Freak 5, which feels a little bit more supportive, you know what I mean? And also lateral containment, my foot was not coming out of the footbed at all in both of the shoes, right? But if you want a little bit more like that supportive feel, then obviously the Zoom Freak 5 will be a little bit better because of this, right? And also lateral containment, I was good to go here in the Zoom Freak 5. We have the swoosh coming up here in the midfoot. We have a little bit of the foam coming up here in the forefoot, and we have an internal TPU heel count, right? And also lateral stability, they're probably around the same. Yeah, they're pretty much the same exact width. They have a pretty wide base, so a lateral stability was good for me as well. And in both of the shoes, my foot felt pretty damn locked down, but like I said, you have these extra eyelets as well that kind of add a little bit to that supportive and also lockdown feel here in the midfoot. So the Zoom Freak 5 feels a little bit better for support and lockdown, even though honestly I didn't really have any issues with the Zoom Freak 4. If you're a bigger dude though, you'll probably notice the difference a little bit more, you know what I mean? So if you want the overall more supportive shoe, then go with the Zoom Freak 5. And now moving on to the weight of the shoe. Maybe I feel like the Zoom Freak 4 is gonna be lighter. Yeah, super light, 11 ounces on the dot for the 4. The 5 is a little bit heavier, 11.4 ounces, right? So the Zoom Freak 4 feels a little bit more minimal, right? It feels a little bit lighter as well, but not as responsive because the Zoom Freak 5 traction is just better, you know what I mean? So I felt just as quick, if not quicker, when I was playing on the Zoom Freak 5, but also a little bit more cozy and a little bit more comfortable because of the cozier material. So there's the weight there. Moving on to the aesthetics, I feel like I like the 5 a little bit better. Right? The 4 still looks pretty good, but I feel like the 5 looks a little bit better. So tell us what you guys think looks better down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, yeah, I definitely feel like the Zoom Freak 5 is an upgraded version of the Zoom Freak 4, right? It feels very similar on foot, right? A very, very similar feel, but you know, the material feels a little bit more supportive, a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more cozy, while not feeling too bulky and also cumbersome. And then the cushion is also an upgrade in my personal opinion because I like the top-loaded Zoom Unit in the forefoot better. The traction performs better too, feels a little bit more supportive as well. So because of those reasons, and because it seems like it's not like crazy better, it's not way better, but because of those little upgrades, I definitely do like the Zoom Freak 5 better, right? Even though the Zoom Freak 4 was a pretty good performer, the Zoom Freak 5 definitely will be in my rotation. Pretty damn heavy. I really enjoyed playing this shoe. The Zoom Freak 4, it was kind of loosely in my rotation, but the 5 will definitely be in my rotation, right? And also, I definitely feel like a lot of people will agree, you know what I mean? And I will recommend the Zoom Freak 5 to you guys more than the 4. But anyways, that all concludes this versus video. Again, if you guys want to cop either of these shoes, I try to leave a link in the description box. Hope this video helped you guys out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.